Well, hello and welcome to the CS Guide. So far in this series called Creating a Native Code Editor using Electron, I've shown you how to install and configure Electron, and in the previous video we started out by making the basic window layout which you can see on the screen right now. Now in this one, I'm going to begin by targeting the issue that we had in making window draggable like a native window. So I'm going to move back to Visual Studio, and I'm also going to launch my project using command line like this. Notice how I am able to drag the window, but only when I pick the window just from the title text called snippets. Now we need to change that, as ideally we should be able to pick and drag the window from anywhere on the title bar. If we dive into our code, you can see that the class draggable is applied to the div containing snippets, and that class is the reason why the window is draggable only through that limited portion. The way to achieve what we want is simple. All we have to do is to tell the window title div to attain a width that is equal to the entire title bar, and leave out the window controls div. To do this, I am going to head over to titlebar.css and make the class titlebar, just like that, and add the property called displayGrid. Now we have discussed this in the previous video as well, but you can see on the right the complete working of displayGrid as I add more properties to it. So right now, titlebar has property called displayGrid, and I'm going to add another property called grid-template-columns. And now we specify the amount of columns that this grid can expect and the length that each column would have. You can play around it to familiarize yourself. Right now, you can see if I put values like 1fr and 1fr, the whole title bar is divided into equal parts. That's not what we want. So what I'm going to do is to pass the values 1fr and auto. You can see the first column takes as much space as possible, whereas the second column takes as little space as possible. And there we go. We have our title bar. You can see now we are able to drag it from whichever point we wish to, and the buttons on the top right corners also work exactly the way you would expect it to. Moving on, now we're going to implement a custom menu. Now, since I made this whole app on my Windows machine, and Electron, as of now, does not give much liberty in making custom menus and title bar, I knew that making custom menu was the only solution. But if there are people following these tutorials on some other OS, such as maybe Linux or macOS, then they do not really need to do this. But for Windows, this is necessary, and the menu that I'm going to be implementing follows Windows menu style. I'm not going to write the complete code for the menu, although I can show you from where to get it. It's simple. Just head over to GitHub and search for snippets-electron-js. You can see in the repository section, the second repository is where the file is contained. Once you open up the repository, click on the complete menu.html, or you can simply follow the link in the description. Now just copy the code after the body tag from div id menu-bar all the way down to the last div. Come back to codeeditor.html and just below the window controls, paste it all. And now if I reload the window, you can see that the entire menu is laid out here. So now let's apply some styles to it. Again, go back to the GitHub page and copy the complete CSS present between the opening and closing styles tag, excluding the styles tag of course. Head back to Visual Studio and create a new file inside of CSS folder and name it menu.css, as it will contain the styling code of our menu, and paste all the code that we just copied inside of this file. Come back to codeeditor.html and link the CSS file just like this. Now as soon as we reload the window, you can see that we now have our menu with us. The only problem is that it does not work right now. So to make it work, go back to GitHub page again and copy the JavaScript dependency lines and paste them inside of the head tag of codeeditor.html just like that. Now the reason we added this line is because while developing using Electron, when you try to use any JS plugin that requires jQuery, the plugin doesn't find jQuery, even if you load it in the correct path using script tags. And this problem is resolved by using this single line of code. And just below we have our jQuery.min.js dependency. And I would suggest that instead of loading it from cloud, we should rather save it locally so as to make the development process much faster. So to do that, I am going to copy this link, head over to my browser and paste it. Notice how we got the entire raw library code. Now I'm simply going to select everything by pressing Ctrl A and copying it, and head over to VS Code and create a new file inside of the JS folder and name it jQuery.min.js. And that's it. Coming back to our code editor.html, you can see that we need to create another file inside of our JS folder and name it jQuery.menu.js. Just like this. And to put some content inside of jQuery.menu.js, we're gonna have to go back to GitHub and find the file called jQuery.menu.js and simply copy all of its content and paste it inside the newly created JS file. So now, as we reload the project, you can see that the menu works. I did not went into the code that the menu contains, and that is something that I am gonna start the next video off with. But I will briefly explain the structuring of the menu since there is no need for me to explain the CSS and JS, as it is pretty clear if you look at it. If you do need some help, you can always comment down below. So that's it for now, and in the next one, we are gonna build the layout below the menu bar. If you learned something of value, then make sure to like the video and hit subscribe if you want to follow the series.